What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Founder Academy. I am Mark, the FUT founder, and first I want to start by saying happy MLK Day to all my American friends. So it's Martin Luther King Day in the States. I'm able to partake a little bit as a Canadian here who happens to just have Monday off here. So I was able to watch a ton of excellent sports. Except my Arizona Cardinals are getting just stomped by the LA Rams. But that's what you get for being an Arizona Cardinals fan, right? How dare I expect them to be any better? Because they got to let you down. That's what the Cardinals do. But I was able to watch the Wizards beat the 76ers in basketball today. And Colorado, I got to see Nathan McKinnon play in the NHL. I love watching him play, so I watched them against the Wild, which was a fantastic game. So some really cool sports on. So happy MLK Day to all my American friends. But that's not what you guys are here for. You're not here to hear my opinions on other sports. You're here for FIFA stuff, right? So what you guys are seeing is my first foray into FUT Champs. So division rivals, I wouldn't worry too much about this game. This was just a warm-up game before we jumped into our qualifications. But you're going to see, I have, I think, like 4 or 5 videos worth of like gameplay, like a ton of gameplay, guys. So hopefully we can release these. Hopefully work and life doesn't get in the way and we can actually release some really cool videos. I learned a ton about this game over the last week, I guess I would say, because I've been able to work from home, and during some of my downtime I've been able to get on and actually like play FUT Champs for the first time, and I realized that it is just as frustrating as it's ever been. Like very, very frustrating. We'll get into all of that. I was also able to do some like really cool SBCs. As you guys know, I'm not a huge advocate of SBCs outside of doing ones for packs. However, they've like just nerfed the amount of SBCs for packs because I guess they just think that too many people are getting too many packs, which isn't really the case. They're always doing things to like limit the amount of coins that are in the market, which is why there's a ton of coin sync SBCs, which normally I don't fall for, but they just released so many emotional cards over the last week and a half, which you guys will see. I'm not going to spoil who we did, but just my club is at an all-time low. I had a ton of fodder. I had a bunch of coins that were sitting in the club, and a lot of that is gone now because I had get these cards in my club because there were so many emotional guys in there. So I'm hoping this team of the year is going to be really, really fun. I've also been stockpiling packs for the first time, so I've been able to replenish my club. I'm going to save them for ideally mostly when all of the team of the years are in, with the exception of like those 83 plus attacker packs, which I'm just going to open when the attackers are in because there's no point waiting until they're all in packs. But anything like jumbo rare gold players, I'll wait until all the players in. I'm not going to pack anything of significance, guys. Let's be real here. But I need to give myself a chance, right? You don't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. So I got to at least try. So I think I've got about 18 or 20 packs. Considering it comes out on, I believe, the 27th is when all the players are in packs, which will either be the Thursday or the Friday of like about a week and a half from now. That gives us a lot of time to go get some more cool ones to stockpile up in our store. So hopefully we get some cool stuff. I do have some really cool packs from the icon swaps as well, the 83 plus 25, so maybe that will give us something fun. But if not, at least we'll get some really good fodder and we can use those to maybe do like an icon player pick SBC or something like that. So a lot of really cool stuff, guys, a lot of fun to be had in the near future here. I know Shane, who's a loyal viewer to the channel, he mentioned something in our comments section about the Cruise investment that we made. A little update on that. We made some really, really good money on that. So I was waiting until he hit 30K. I think the most I spent on any of those cruises was 22. I had to offload a couple of them in order to do some of the SBCs, which you guys will see in the near future here. But we ended up probably in all making about 200K on them. Like, so you can definitely make some real good money when fodder's at an all-time low, which it will be again during team of the year when like people are opening a ton of packs. Think about 1 or 2 guys that you strategically would want to invest in. Anything I think from like 84, 85 and higher. You know, just watch their price range. Just find a guy who's going to be like ideal for the rest of the year. Like a good example, and this is one that I probably shouldn't be giving away, but is Jan Oblak. He's going to be the cheapest 91 rated card that you're going to be able to get. Like Robert Lewandowski is always going to be expensive because some people do like using him. The occasional person will use an Oblak, but he'll be perfect for SBC fodder. He's 91 rated. He's always going to be the lowest priced one. So, kind of watch his price, see where it's at. Get him when he's at a low, and then just stockpile a bunch of them. And even if you make a couple K, the sheer volume in which you'll purchase him out, or purchase him at, you'll be able to make some money, right? There's a lot of money to be had. It's just scared money don't make no money, right? So you gotta be willing to invest in stuff and just do it in an intelligent way. I think fodder is always a good thing to invest in. You can always try like icons, but icons are very touch and go. I think they just pretty much go down. They're short-term trades, I think, right? So you can buy them, you can watch their prices with time of the week. Like, do people buy them more when they're on Thursdays or Fridays, or are they now purchasing them on Wednesdays because people don't want to play premium for Thursdays? I don't like getting into that. I'd rather just stockpile a whole bunch of like SBC fodder and do that. Or you can look at getting into chemistry style trading, right? Like buy shadows when they're 4K and then offload them when they're at 5, right? Because there's going to be times where they're going to be 5K. Like, let's be real, they are going to get there. There's times where they're basically extinct, right? So just wait it out and then sell them when they're at 5K. I don't know how low they'll go. You're not going to make an absolute ton. Making 1,000, it's still 20% of the cost on it. But you're going to have to buy a whole lot of those at 4K and just sit on them for quite a while. But eventually they will go extinct at some point when they release a promo that people want to have shadows, and you'll have some pretty good profit from it. It's just whether you're willing to tie up your coins. All right, that's the downside with it. But that's that. Let's get into some of the gameplay here. We learned an absolute ton, as I mentioned, from the games. One of the things, and I apologize to people that have heard me say this ad nauseum, but morale is still in the game, and it really, really affected us, especially in the FUT Champs finals. Like, you're not going to see it a ton. I'll kind of point out a little bit here in the final games that you'll watch in this video, because you don't see it a whole lot in the qualifying, because the qualifying opponents aren't incredible. But when you're playing FUT Champs, like the finals, it is so sweaty that if your team is not playing 100%, yeah, you're in for it. And that's basically what happened to us. I made the mistake of letting my team get moraled and drop a couple games, and they got basically to the point where they're unplayable. And it ended up picking us up another couple losses. So for those of you that are new to the channel, I know we picked up a couple of subscribers. People roll their eyes at me. Like, I was watching this with a real popular professional gamer that I was in his stream today, actually, and I was watching him in the Elite Division, and his team was getting moraled really badly because he picked up a couple losses in a row, and he was just blaming it on bad gameplay. And again, that makes no sense. And I tried explaining it in the chat, and then people just get mad at me, and they just go, "Oh my god, this isn't FIFA 13. There's no such thing as morale," and blah 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 blah. It is. It's in the game code, right? Like, I am not going to sit there and saying I've seen it in the game code, but like, guys, I'm not making this up for the sake of this being good for my health. This is not a win-loss issue, and that's where people get obsessed with it. They're like, you're mad that you lost. It is not about winning or losing. I've won games where I'm getting morale, and I've beaten opponents where they're getting morale. Basically what morale is it used to be in the old games, right? So when your team loses, they play a little bit worse, and if you pick up another loss and another loss and another loss, if you don't win a game in between there to kind of start off balancing it, think of it as like every time you lose, your team gets worse, and when you win, they get better. And if you start losing games on the bounce, they can get to a state where it's almost unplayable. That's what happened to us in FUT Champs. I am guilty of doing this myself, of getting frustrated and jumping back into a game. If your team is not playing to their absolute best ability, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? So what happens when teams are getting morale? What does that mean? Basically, the players will get affected by little niggly things. So it's not just, there's no such thing as like the scripting of like, Mark needs to lose this game. That doesn't exist. What it's doing is it's dumbing your team down so they play worse, right? So I'll give you an example. When you're in the attacking final third, let's say I've got a sweat pass on. I'm at the byline, I sweat it across. If my team is really badly getting moraled, I'll play that ball, and my player will either kind of back up, so by the time the ball gets to him, the keeper's now in a better position, or it won't lock in, or the pass will just go astray. Like a guy like Puskas, who 99 out of 100 times makes that pass, he can make a real simple pass, and my player will just be like, he'll do something dumb, or he'll run into the net, or he'll back up so a defender can now get into the way. Like, it's really simple, niggly little things. Their shots will be a lot more central. I saw this an absolute ton. You'll see it in the upcoming videos where I'm playing with my team getting morale. The passes will go astray. When you're in attacking position, if you're looking at an opponent, or if you're looking at your player and you want to make that pass, an opponent will be here and your player will move in behind him. So it basically creates, or it removes the ability for you to make a really simple pass, right? So what it wants you to do is it wants you to turn the ball over so you're on the back foot. When you're in the defensive end, your players will open up, right? They're not going to track runs as properly. They're going to do dumb things. They're going to like kind of lose their focus. They'll jump up and the player will get in behind. It's going to be much easier for your player or for your opponents to make these long, like magical through balls because your player's positioning is just totally out of whack. You're having to change players rapidly and pull them back into position. Your players won't block shots. They'll lift their legs up. Two things that are really telling actually. One is when you see like a stray ball or when you make a pass, your players will do that weird looping lobby run. They won't go in a straight line to it. They'll do these kind of runs to get to the ball. They'll kind of do that weird kind of jogging off to the side. That is a very telling sign that your team's getting essentially handicapped. Like, people get obsessed with the term morale. Like, they just go, it's not in the game, morale was removed. Call it whatever you want. Call it a handicap. If your team's getting handicapped, I'm going to call it morale just for the sake of simplicity for this video, because it happens when you lose. Your team gets handicapped because of the morale that's in the game, right? And it's been in for years, right? So it makes that lobby run. The other thing that will be very telling is your passes will be under hit and or they're going to be bouncing a lot more. So when your team is getting morale, their passes will, like, you'll make a simple pass and the ball will bounce. And what that's doing is it's causing your player to have to, the slower passes will have to bring your player off his run. He won't take it in stride. He'll have to stop, wait for the ball to get there. And then two, when it's bouncing, he's got to kind of jump up to kind of collect the pass, which takes him off his momentum from his stride. So it slows your player down. And why it's doing that is it's causing your players to slow the flow of your attack so that the defensive AI can get set and get into better defensive positions. So it's all these little niggly things that are happening. Anyway, point being, I know this is really ranty and I've been going on for a few minutes about it, but the reason I'm saying this, guys, is I can bet with, like, I would put money on this, that not only is it in the game code, but most of people's frustrations with this game is caused from games after they've lost, or after they've lost multiple times, more importantly, that their team is getting moraled and they think it's just bad gameplay today. I would almost guarantee it, right? So short of me just sitting here ranting and raving and my poor girlfriend who's heard me complain about this a million times, if you guys have experienced your team losing a couple games and you think that they're playing poorly, please go offline, just crush the computer. I know it's painful because it took me 6 games to get them at a state where they were playable again. 6. You probably won't have to do that, but that was my mistake because I was doing it in FUT Champs. I just needed one more win, and I kept going into games, and I started taking amplified losses because my team was playing really poorly, and I couldn't get them back to a playable state. I had to go offline and play 6 games, guys. 6 offline games. And the reason that I knew it was because I do simple things so that I test, because I've played this so much that I know when they're getting morale. I know when their sliders have dropped really badly. So I'll test little simply things like how quickly they're able to turn, their ball rolls, their shot accuracy. I will ping passes around and you'll be able to tell from a triangle whether they can complete triangle. Like, you don't have to get into this level of monotony, but I know how to identify that, and you will too if you just watch them. Go into like amateur or beginner and just make those simple passes, and you'll be able to tell because they'll pass and then they'll move out of the way instead of keeping a structured triangle. If you start doing those triangles when they're getting moraled and they're getting handicapped really badly, they'll start closing in those gaps and they'll take away space from each other, or they'll move out of the way so defenders can get in the way, so it'll prevent that triangle from happening. So simple things like that you can use to be as key indicators. The ball will be on the ground, it won't be as lobby and bouncy. Your players, like, obviously you'll be able to score goals against a computer because you're playing against a computer, but just get a couple key indicators that you know are happening when your team's getting affected by it, and then just take them offline. And then once you get a couple games, think of it as 1-for-1. Every loss you've taken will probably require you to go offline and play at least 1 or 2 games for it. A 1-to-1 ratio, unfortunately, is the reality to get your team into playable state. So anyway, guys, just try that. Like, if you're still having issues with it, you can just hope that your elo gets low enough that you play some other guy. But I understand it happens. You'll end up coming up against some crap player. But when you're playing in FUT Champs, you only have 20 games. You don't have enough. You don't have a lot of time to be able to really like try this out. You're essentially coming up against like really, really incredible opponents almost every game. So you just have to do what you have to do, right? And it's like, if you want to take that risk and risk giving up 3 or 4 losses like I did, that was my mistake. I knew better, but I was just getting frustrated, and that was where my mistake came. I just went right back into the games, and I was like, I just need one. I just need to come up against some crap opponent, but I didn't. I kept coming up against good opponents because I won my first 6 games, or I went 6-1 or something like that. So my elo was so high at that point that like it took me so long to come up with that final win, because I was coming up against, even if they were relatively close to where my skill rating was, I was getting handicapped so badly that my team was unplayable and I had no chance, and I ended up picking up way more losses than I should have. So my record wasn't as good as it should have, guys. You guys, I won't spoil what it is. You guys will see in the end what we ended up finishing at. But yeah, this is just something that I've been very passionate about. I really, really wish that EA would address this. I wish that other people would identify it and put pressure on them, because I promise you, this is not, I'm not saying this for like my health. Believe me, it's caused the opposite. It's caused me more frustration than anything. But I swear to God that it is in there. Like, that's what's causing people's frustration with it, is they just don't understand that when you're losing, your team's actually behind the scenes really badly getting handicapped, or getting moraled, as I'm going to call it, right? That's what's happening to it, and that's what's causing people to be frustrated and think that the gameplay is poor. Every game someone loses, right? Every game. Even draws in the old morale system that used to exist in old FIFAs, even draws would cause your team to fall through the floor a little bit, right? Same concept applies, right? Your team's worse. I've tried this with my own team. I've had players, like friends of mine, try it out. Like, I've given them those basis, and I don't know if that's misleading to them and causing this like effect where it is in their head. I can't remember, like it's just influencing their opinion on it. But I swear to God, everybody that I've told this to and I said just try it, they've all supported the concept of this existing. And I'm even seeing it with pros. I see it in pros all the time. Pros, streamers, like content creators, when they're losing and then they get frustrated and then they blame gameplay, or they just go, oh, it's my fault. It's not always your fault, man. The game is coded that way. So do yourself a favor and just get out of that rhythm. Go play offline. I know it's monotonous, but you're going to do yourself a favor. You're going to save yourself a ton of time, and more importantly, you're going to prevent a lot of losses, right? So anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. I'm going to jump off. I apologize for people that have heard me say this a ton of times. However, like I said, we do have a couple new subscribers, so people that are new to the channel, hopefully that's helpful to you, man. Just please go out and try it, because I promise it is going to be helpful in terms of the way your team plays, right? Like, if you see that they're getting handicapped really badly, just go out, try it out. You're going to notice a huge difference. What you guys have seen so far has been a very, I don't want to call it easy run. However, it hasn't been the most difficult. This opponent that we are coming up against, this was, I believe this was our first loss online. But what I wanted to address with this game, I'm not taking anything away from my opponent, so I want to caveat this. This game itself is another thing that I've learned is incredibly broken with this game and really needs to be addressed. And this is, as you guys can see, this is a very capable opponent, but what he did was he went ultra attacking. He went a 4-2-4 right out of the gate. So I only used 3 different formations. I used a 4-2-3-1, which I use as a default. I play possession, kind of a slow build up. That's what I like to play. When I'm down, I'll go into a 4-2-4 because it causes more goals. However, it allows more goals to be scored against you. That's very offensive. Or I'll do a 5-4-1 or a 4-5-1, which is an ultra defensive, and I usually only do that if I'm in the final minutes and I just need a lot of men behind the ball. But the problem with that is when you're ultra defensive, it actually backs up. They're too passive, so it's something that I don't like to use too often unless I really just need a lot of men behind the ball and I feel like the game's causing my players to move out of the way. So what you guys are seeing is an opponent that basically abused the 4-2-4 right out of the gate. So for me, this was very frustrating because all it did was it caused my team to feel like they're under duress and I couldn't complete simple passes. So anyway, I'm not mad at my opponent for using it. I'm frustrated at the game for having this be this effective right out of the gate, right? If you're going into a 4-2-4, it should not allow your opponent to be this effective offensively. And again, this is not a knock on him. I've said that 3 times. He was very capable. However, it affected me more negatively than it affected him positively, right? His defense was still playing okay, but I couldn't get out of my back end because my players viewed it as like their composure was so far down the rabbit hole of being like affected by all this pressure that the guy was under that I was 3-0 down before I could even do anything. Like I couldn't hold the ball. I couldn't make a simple pass because it just put my players under so much pressure. And that's not a me issue. That's not something that, like, I'm not blaming the 3 goals. I'm blaming the fact that it prevented me from making simple passes. It has such a negative effect and it's such an overpowering effect that you cannot do anything about it. Your players just fall through the floor. Like, look at those simple moves, right? Like, all it takes is just him pass, and then shooting into space in behind. And, like, look at his players. Like, they're so aggressive. So the only way that I was able to get back into this game was switching to a 4-2-4 myself. So it rubber banded me back into the game, which is what you guys are seeing. So he was up 3-0. And then what I was hoping that my team would go 3-3. Because if he gets this 4th goal, he's just always going to go shot for shot with me now. And as soon as he scored that goal right there, that 4th goal, it was dead. Unless he went off of the ultra attacking, this game was always going to finish at least 1 or 2 goals because every time I would score, his team would pull back. Every time he would score, my team would pull 1. But he was always going to be 1 or 2 goals ahead of me, if that makes any sense to you guys. So anyway, the point being, like, there's no counter to this, right? You can't go ultra defensive. Ultra defensive doesn't work well enough in this. So there's no real downside with going ultra attacking. Now, you still have to score. You still have to be good enough to score and take advantage of that. But if you're a good player, this is actually a very, very good tactic because your opponents can't defend it. Their defensive stats fall through the floor right out of the gate, so it's actually really effective. The second thing is that it doesn't seem to hurt stamina. This guy was ultra attacking the entire game, so he knew that I was going to pull goals back because I went ultra attacking, but as long as he continued to just go shot for shot with me, there's no way that my team would be able to catch up because every time I scored, because I was ultra attacking, all he had to do was just spam right down the middle of the field, and my defense would open up like the Red Sea, right? And he would just score another goal. So he ended up winning, I think it was like 5-3 or whatever it was, or was it 6-4, something like that. So credit to him for knowing that, but it's something that needs to be nerfed, right? He was able to play, or 5-4. He was able to do that for the entire game, right? So again, you still have to be good enough to do it. So credit to him for being able to be good enough to identify that. But that is not something that should be allowed to happen. Is your players should like drain of their stamina when you're ultra attacking. Their stamina should drain so fast that it's almost unusable, right? Like, I understand when you look at the bars at the end of the game, when you're ultra attacking, your players look like they have no stamina, but if you're going shot for shot, his team was still able to massively overcome mine, right? Like, they were not breaking down at all. It just ended up being like offense versus offense versus offense versus offense, and there was no way back into it. So I don't know if you guys have a different opinion on it. Please let me know. I'm really interested to get people's opinion on like how to do it. Obviously, I've come up against other people that haven't been able to utilize it as well. But yeah, like against a really good opponent, like he was so good offensively that I couldn't do anything to stop it because my team was just breaking down. It crazy. Like, I've never seen a guy do it right out of the gate. It was very bizarre. Anyway, so like what you guys are seeing now is actually my next opponent here. No offense to him, and I apologize if he sees this. He wasn't a very good opponent, but what I wanted to show with you guys here was my team was actually getting morelled really poorly here. So as you guys can see, the simple passes that they're normally making, they're not locking into things. This guy was a really, really average at best opponent. However, you guys can see there, like, simple mistakes, right? Like, I went to head the ball off a corner. Clarence Seedorf doesn't head the ball. Instead, he puts in a tackle. The ball's in the air, and he put in a tackle, which caused a penalty. So even though he doesn't score it, right? Like, my team is getting essentially handicapped. My players are now moving out of the way. Like, you could see there, that shot had 3 players in the way. The Tierney opened up his leg, so the shot went underneath it, and then Conte ducked to let the ball go over top of him, and then my Ederson actually dove forward, and the ball was just so poorly hit that he ended up shooting it wide. Like I said, I knew we were going to come back in this game because the opponent wasn't that great. However, what I'm saying is, like, that first goal that he scored, for example, the cross comes in. Normally, Varane goes in and it just becomes a 50-50 header, but Varane should normally win that. Instead, he doesn't go up for the header. He actually backed off and put himself in a worse position. And his Eduardo turned towards Varane, let the ball come over top of him, and volleys it with his left. Like, it's little things like that, guys, that are, I know that sounds crazy. People think that I'm making up excuses, but honestly, like, if you feel the way the team plays, you'll be able to tell, right? Like, this is where, like, I really should have taken the team offline. But again, I wasn't super concerned. I knew that we were going to be able to pull off the win against this guy because he wasn't a fantastic opponent. But I shouldn't even have put myself in a position where I was, like, playing against him. I probably should have been wise enough in order to take my team offline. But there's a perfect example, right? Like, he ends up scoring, my team opens up like the Red Sea, and like, that's with Kimpembe. There's another opportunity, right? Puskas has the ball. He's got the outside of the left foot shot. He normally takes it with the outside of his left, and he hit it with his right, so he hit it wide, right? So I had to go ultra attacking in order to pull my team back in. As you guys can see there, I had to change my team. So I had to go back into defense. If I didn't go ultra attacking, I probably would have lost this game because my team was playing so poorly. But I had to pull them back in and rubber band them, right? Like, force the game code to bring me back into this game. This is normally a team that if I would have just played him, like, regularly, like, look at how erratic the gameplay is, right? So if I would have normally played this guy in division rivals, it probably would have been, I don't know, 5-2 or something like that. He wasn't absolutely terrible offensively, but you can see defensively, he's not that sound, right? He's not a fantastic player. But my players are just missing chances. They're just doing dumb things. They feel just a little bit off, right? So that amplifies incredibly well, or that amplifies massively when you're coming up against, like, really, really good opponents, right? When you're playing in a very tight game, you don't have the luxury of being able to get a million chances, right? So these small little fine lines are the things that create most of those problems. Like, here's a perfect example. Zaha would have cut in. I would have been able to make a clean pass. Instead, he almost gives it away. When I get the ball to Karim Benzema, I just need Sterling to make the straight run. But because they're slowly getting morale, he cut in towards it and actually closed off the space. So normally that run would have been straight ahead, so it actually gives my player a passing lane. But Sterling came in towards it, so it actually removed the amount of room for error that I was able to make scoring that goal. But anyway, those are just small little niggly things, guys. You'll see a ton of it more in, like, Ultimate Team. I promise we won't talk about this in every single game, but it's just something that they really need to address because it's really, really problematic, and it's caused a huge issue. It's amplified massively this year because players have gotten so good that, like, there isn't that much room for error. So to have your team not playing at a very, very usable state can be hugely detrimental. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. I appreciate you sticking with me to the very end. And until next time, guys, take care. Peace.